there.
Hi,
We are the
Dyslexia Duo.
Each week, we sit down with amazing people, including top researchers and experts in dyslexia, powerful advocates, affected individuals, and more.
Together, we break down the myths, share real stories, highlight research and strategies to advise our listeners about this prevalent learning disability. Come join us!
Hey, Aimee.
So we have a very special guest, and I'm going to give a little background. It's a little different than our typical traditional guests we have. I was on my LinkedIn, and one of my, I don't know if you call them friends on LinkedIn. I don't know what you call them, but one of my
colleagues,
my LinkedIn, I have a friend that calls it LinkedIn. LinkedIn on my LinkedIn, and she was talking about the book, The Digital Delusion, how classroom technology harms our kids' learning and how to help them thrive again. And I was like, holy crap. And she was pulling out excerpts and posting them on her LinkedIn. And I was like, I've got to get this book. I've got to get this book. I've got to get this book. And while I was just thinking, I got to get this book, I was like, we've got to get him on the show. We've got to get him on the show. So we're so excited that Dr. Jared Horvath, am I saying your name correctly?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, is here with us. So go ahead and introduce yourself to our guests and just tell everybody who you are, what you do.
Yeah. Absolutely. It's lovely to be here. And hello, everybody in podcast land. My name is Jared. I am a teacher turned neuroscientist. So I cut my teeth teaching. That's all I ever wanted to do. But I was teaching during the decade of the brain. So everything was brain books, brain this. I figure I'll go back to school, learn that stuff, and bring it back to my classroom to be a better teacher. Unfortunately, I was never able to leave university. It's been 18 years now I've been stuck at university, and I study anything that has to do with learning. So neuroscience, AI, behavioral economics, psychology. If it deals with learning, that's what I focus on. And my job has largely been to kind of synthesize all that. And I'm lucky enough, I get to work primarily with schools, with teachers and students and parents, and say, if this is how learning works, what does that mean for pedagogy? What does that mean for studying? So I've become kind of the bridge between the laboratory and the classroom.
That's incredible. And I'm heading it off at the pass now. If y'all don't get this book, you are missing out. Don't get it digitally. Just get a hard copy of it.
Yes.
I know. I feel bad there's a digital version of it. Oh.
I actually looked first and I thought that's a little counterintuitive if there was.
So, they made me do it. That's a publisher thing. I didn't want to.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
So, you know, you're a popular guy. Like, we had to kind of maneuver our schedule to make sure that we could get you when you're available.
I think I'm just flavor of the month right now because, like we were talking about earlier, I think John Haidt's Anxious Generation came out, and that woke a lot of people up to, wait a second, digital tools aren't just inert. They're not just, hey, it's like a pencil. They change the way we think. They change the world we live in. And do we like those changes? And we really, by and large, don't. So I think that woke people up to kind of want to push back against tech. And I published an article with John Haidt last year called The EdTech Revolution Has Failed. It basically just laid out the case why EdTech is the next cell phone. And he said that was the most read piece he had all year. He said, this is the next thing, is parents are now, ever since COVID, aware of how much their kids are on screens at school. And we've got all these parents at home saying, no screens on the weekends, no screens in your room. Then their kids go to school and for 6 hours they're looking at a screen. And so he's like, it's time to push back against that. So I just think it was perfect timing where parents especially were just ready to push back and say, all right, let's do this a little bit better.
They're thirsty for it.
Yeah. And what a perfect time. If I'd had published this 3 years ago, I don't think people would have even known it was a thing. But right now the window is open. So I said, jump through it.
People haven't read your book. How would you summarize it? How would you summarize The Digital Delusion?
This is going to break your heart, but this is what I got to tell all parents. Our kids are less cognitively developed than we were at their age. And this is the first time in recorded history we've seen that. Every generation has outperformed their parents on basically every measure we have. Literacy, numeracy, creativity, critical thinking, general IQ. We've always gone up. And that's exactly what we wanted. We want our kids to outshine us. And our biggest mechanism for that growth was always school. Every generation spent more time in school, all their cognitive abilities went up. Somehow that trend broke around 2002, where ever since 2002, kids have spent even more time in school than we did, yet all their cognitive skills are going down. So for a long time, we tried to fight and say, well, what's causing this? And the biggest culprit we landed on was how we're doing our teaching. It's the ed tech. It's the more schools bring tech into their teaching and learning cycle, the more learning progress development goes down. So that's the big thesis of this book. One thing, the more our kids use tech for learning, the worse their learning becomes. Maybe it's time to return to some analog methods.
I don't disagree with that. And I can remember, so my kids are all grown up. So I have a 30-year-old, a 27-year-old, and a 23-year-old. And my 30-year-old, we didn't give him any devices until 9th grade, and we gave him phones because he was in high school and he was kind of out of pocket. We just wanted him to be able to contact us. And we waited till the other two were in 8th grade, but I can remember them being in 3rd grade, 4th grade. So, well, so-and-so's got a phone. Why can't I have one? I'm like, what's the point? What would you be doing with the phone? One, I'm at your campus with you. You don't need to call and study because I'm teaching here across the hall from you. And two, all you're going to use it for is as a distraction. It's a big distraction. And I see now, not so much with my older one, because I think he's just not as impacted by digital like the two younger ones are. They're constantly on their devices as young adults.
Yeah. And I am willing to draw a line between social and personal and learning. Is if people want to be on a phone 24/7 in their own time, go do your thing. But when it comes to school time, when it comes to learning time, I think one of the easiest things we did was ban cell phones. Like, to me, that was always low-hanging fruit. Banning cell phones wasn't so much why should we do it, so much as why did we ever let them in the first place? Exactly as you said, what function did they serve? If we just think of smartphones, the only arguments you have are like, what if I need to get a hold of my kid? Well, thank God there's a phone at the front of the school. Yeah. What if my kid needs to get a hold of me? Well, thank God there's a phone at the front of the school. And then some people have medical reasons. Like somebody said, well, what if my kid has a defibrillator and his heart needs to be? To which I was working with a doctor at the time. The doctor said, would you really trust your kid's health to a machine they're going to game on all morning so that if it runs out of batteries, they're going to die? They said, no, medical will have specific devices. We won't use cell phones. And even in an emergency, all the data shows that the worst thing that can happen in an emergency is every kid jumping on a cell phone. It clogs the networks. People like in Gainesville, 2018 shooting, some of the ambulances couldn't get to the scene to help the kids because as soon as the shooting started, parents were texting, the kids were texting the parents drove to the school. And I don't know if you've ever seen a line of cars that comes when it's time to get to school. Ambulances just couldn't get in. And so cell phones were easy to me. The next level now is the laptops and the tablets, where people think, well, at least those are good for learning. And you see, no, a laptop is just a big cell phone, mate. If it's bad in one sense, making it twice as large isn't going to make it any better. And you come across the exact same issues with those.
You had mentioned in 2002, that was kind of when the change happened cognitively. Yeah. Also, No Child Left Behind happened around that time too. So do you have a correlation there with EdTech, No Child Left Behind, how that relates?
You can. I don't publish any of the data or talk about it just because it starts to get muddy. But my favorite kind of piece of data from that time was 2002 was when Maine introduced the first one-to-one computer program for kids. So if for listeners who don't know, that's when every kid gets a laptop. One-to-one is one kid, one laptop. At the time they did this, Maine, I think, was 8th in state ranking in terms of most of their scores for the NAEP, for SATs, ACTs, and stuff. Over the next 15 years, they dropped to, at one point, they were as low as 48th when it came to the SATs. Whoa. And as No Child Left Behind kind of came and went and policies came and went, there was still this downward trend. And the thing that kind of the through line through all of them always seemed to be just this tech, more tech, fewer scores. Expand tech even further, your kids get even worse. So there by all means, there are other things going on as well, but this seems to be the most readily available and easiest thing we can do something about.
Wow. Well, it makes so much sense. And when you think about, there's some other data that's coming out about how the brain is changing. And then I think that's one of my questions a little bit later, and I might be fast forwarding, but the brain is actually changing its structure due to the digital tech. And, that
which is
the vision center is getting bigger, the reading center is getting smaller, things of that nature.
And it's not shocking. I mean, the brain is a passive device. Everyone thinks the brain is active. It drives me. My brain make me do that. The brain is passive. As you do, so the brain changes. That's what makes it so dang powerful. So it shouldn't be surprising to anyone that if you spent 20 years looking at a screen, the parts of your brain that process screen visual images, yeah, it's going to get bigger. The part of your brain that reads that you've never actually used before, it's going to say, why would I waste time here? And it's going to get smaller. But the good news is because the brain is so passive and malleable, we can go back. None of this is permanent. So any of the changes we don't like, we can reverse them.
Wow.
That's helpful.
That's amazing. So in your research, what is the biggest misconception you think educators and parents have about technology maybe being brain-based or evidence-based?
The biggest myth is that there is any evidence behind it whatsoever. The evidence for most digital tools when it comes to learning doesn't exist. It is one of those really weird things where somehow tech got a free pass, where if they invented something new, we immediately put it into schools, and then it became our job to prove it was harming kids.
Right.
Rather than, why don't you prove it's good first, and then we'll consider putting it in schools. So somehow the burden of proof shifted. And it still is. Like AI comes out, everyone's like, put it in schools. Why don't you prove to me where, when, and how we should use it, and that it will benefit learning, and then we'll put it in schools? Instead of everyone use it, and now is it bad? Oh, it is? Well, keep using it anyway. Give us. Oh, geez. But if you have to come back, I think there are a lot of kind of underpinning myths of EdTech that get wrong. I think one of the biggest ones is basically just about agency. If you had to sum it all up, EdTech views children as little adults. They're exactly the same as us. They're just smaller and they smell like Axe body spray. That's the only difference. So they give kids a lot of control over their learning. What they see, how they see it, what they want to do next. It's basically preference or student-based learning. The trick is that kind of learning really only works with adults who have already cleared a K through 12 education. One of the things you're doing in a generalized K through 12 education is you're developing what are called self-regulated learning skills. It's something you can develop. It's just the only place we've ever seen it be able to be developed is in traditional K through 12 classrooms. That's where you cut your teeth. Go to university. The first 2 years you kind of suck. By about junior year, you've developed these enough, you can start to drive your own learning a little bit better. When you give third graders a tool that says, pick your own adventure, you choose your own path. What would you like to learn today? How would you like it presented to you? They don't have enough knowledge to know what's going to help them learn. And so what they end up doing is just picking the easiest path possible. They pick what feels good, not what demonstrates learning. And so what they end up doing is just all that control, which is really good for adults, stunts development, because all kids do is that which I already know how to do, rather than the uncomfortable stuff of what don't I know how to do, and now it's going to feel weird. So a good rule of thumb, learning is hard. Working out is hard. If you go to the gym and you're not huffing and puffing, you're not working out. You're just maintaining. If a kid isn't huffing and puffing when it comes to learning, they're not learning. They're just maintaining. And that's how you stunt growth.
Wow. Interesting.
I love that statement. That really is that's a good visual too.
Yeah, give a little metaphor over.
Yes, you picture your kid in front of you and you're thinking, okay, I don't see them huffing and puffing. I like that. I'm going to use that in my practice. Are you huffing? Are you puffing?
To be fair, it's uncomfortable, but that is self-regulated learning skills. You start to get used to it. The less you experience it, the less you can do it later. You just aren't used to it. So we've got a lot of kids. I was just talking with someone yesterday. A lot of kids going into university where we have to lower the bar so much because their entire schooling career has been meet them where they're at.
Right.
I don't want to meet you where you're at. My job is to get you up here. Sorry, kid. But the more education, especially through tech, has shifted to you're here, you like this, we'll give you this. Now they get to university, we've got to dumb all that down because they just have no practice being uncomfortable. They have no practice having these really high expectations. And so again, just like anything else, experience it more, you get used to it. It becomes a skill for you. But if you never experience it, we can't expect you to ever really understand it.
Wow. Wow.
So how does then, with the neuroscience of learning, how does learning actually happen?
Oh,
is that a big loaded question?
You got 36 hours? Okay, I got it. Let's
We
buckle
got
in.
36 hours of recording. We might go home.
This will be the longest podcast. It'll be an entire master's program. Long story short, if I had to pick, so there are many moderators of learning. You've got memory, you've got attention, you've got vision, you've got, all these are moderators. If you had to say, what's the learning process? Easiest way to kind of pin it down is you've got surface learning. You then go through 3 levels of deep learning, and that allows you then to really enter into what we call transfer learning. So surface learning is basically accumulation of facts. Do you know things? Now, for some reason, facts, they've become a 4-letter word in today's society. Stop teaching kids stuff. We have the internet that gives them stuff. Let them go deep. I can talk to you in a second why that is such a bad idea. But so all learning starts with facts. Once you've got an accumulated set of facts, now you start moving through 3 levels of deep learning. And this has to do now with thinking. So if surface learning is predicated on facts, don't require a ton of thinking. They just require a lot of exposure. Deep learning is predicated on concepts. Concepts says, how are you organizing and manipulating those facts? That's all thinking based. So deep level 1, you basically form your facts into coherent units. These all glom together to say basically this. Deep level 2, you start to shift your units to say, well, different context, maybe it's different facts that belong there. Maybe I could reorganize them like this. Deep level 3, you put your thinking to the test. If all of my organization is correct and I try this, what is the outcome? By trying something, that will give you new information, which will feed in and force you to rethink your ideas. So we got these kind of like nice deep levels, which will then hit into transfer level, is now that I've got a basic understanding and skill, how do I adapt it for a context over here? Can I tweak this skill to make it so that I can now do this thing in a completely different realm over here?
Right.
So I think one of the biggest problems with learning is people always talk about learning like it's a thing, like I just learned. No, it's a long process.
Right.
EdTech, if you could say it does anything well, and there's a huge caveat to this, it's really good at the surface. It's really good at accumulating facts and pushing you to that next leveling up when it comes to facts. It is absolutely trash when it comes to deep levels of learning.
Right.
So that's why one of the things we see is you'll see kids will have made it through school, but you're like, dude, you have no deeper understanding of what all of that stuff might mean. And I think a lot of them don't even know that they're allowed to think that deeply about stuff because they'll just get pushed into the next kind of realm. And again, that might be a bigger structural problem of curricula as well, but
Yeah.
tech fits directly into that as well.
Interesting. Interesting. And I can recall, now I got my bachelor's back in the Stone Age, but I can recall when there were computers, we just weren't using them, right? They had computer science classes. That was so totally different than anything in education. Neither the two shall meet. But I remember just when I would figure out something for my bachelor's, that sense of pride with going deep with my studying and my understanding, it was just such a sense of pride. Like I saved papers from professors who were like, you really did a great spin on this. I never thought about stuff like that. And this is going to the library and going to the card catalog and researching and all of that. So I kept those. I kept my high school papers that said stuff like that. And then I got my master's in 2017. And I don't recall the same level of difficulty because I kept thinking, gosh, I'm close to 50. It's going to be really hard for me to get my master's. My brain's not in the same place as a younger person than I was. And I was like, this wasn't hard at all. And I kept saying to my husband, I would turn in a paper and I'm like expecting to get good critique back and I'd get like all points on it. And I'm like, it wasn't that good, you know? And I just don't know if it was like what you were talking about, the bar was lowered or well, I don't know.
Well, no, I'm not knocking you. It's probably a combination of everything. One, you know more than you think you know, which leads to deeper abilities that if you compared your papers now to 20 years ago, you would notice a marked difference. And that's just because we've gone deeper with all this stuff. But two, yes, it's one of the things before I left the university that I worked at in Australia, they literally said we can no longer fail students. If they pay tuition, they will pass. In which case, what's the point of doing anything? What am I teaching you then? Is if I'm not allowed to standardize or hit some sort of level, cool. Yeah, you turned in 2 pages, you turned in 20. It's all good. You all get A's. Get out of here. And it's really affecting how professors work as well. But then in comes AI and says, don't even worry about feedback. We'll do that for you. You interface between the teacher and the student in any level, you're going to lower learning. And you interface with a screen that's using AI, that's making it, what's the point of any of that? It all starts to really kind of fall apart. But I will also say, all of that friction you talked about in your undergrad, that is learning.
Yeah.
Part of learning was going to the card cabinet and looking things up and going to the shelf and realizing the book wasn't there. Oh shit, I gotta,
yeah.
what you're
Who
doing,
is that
all
person
of
that has
that
my
work,
book?
boom,
Yeah.
all of that is keeping ideas in your head. It's keeping you thinking. You're adapting on the fly, but you're adapting to make an argument. All of that struggle is learning. And when you smooth the hell out of all of that and you say, we'll make it as easy as possible, that stunts learning. Well, like I always say, if you think of like flashcards, right?
Mm-hmm.
Kids are like, do I make my flashcards or do I have a machine make them for me? Making the flashcards isn't the precursor to your learning. Making the flashcards is the learning. You will find that sometimes you make a set of flashcards and you're done. You don't have to study them because it was the act of actually thinking about that, organizing that information. You learned it now. As we get older and we start to remove friction with all these magical tools, note-taking isn't something you do while you learn. Note-taking is your learning. So how do you bake that into the process?
Right. It's that graphomotor from hearing, thinking, summarizing.
Boom.
To those different systems. No, that's...
Now don't worry about that anymore. We'll just type, or better yet, just record a lecture and go home. We're missing out on the point. And like you said, remember that kind of like joy you got when you made an idea, when it all clicked together?
Yeah.
It sucked before that. The learning process sucks. I'm 42 years old. I hate it every time I feel it. The trick is I have enough knowledge to recognize that process, to know, yeah, this suck will end with joy. You just got to go through it till you get to that aha moment. But without all that fighting, you don't ever have an aha. You just have a copy paste. Here you go.
Right.
So can you talk to us a little bit about how that learning process, those steps that are taken, how that is affected by learning disabilities? I think about my students who sit in front of me every day, and they might be there through the therapy process for a couple of years. And that therapy process is so grueling, and they have to do the same things over and over and over. The repetition helps them learn. How is that similar to those deep processes you were talking about?
The good news is, and this is going to make some people angry, but stick with me. I promise you it will make sense. What I love most about learning is every human being learns in exactly the same way. There is not a human being alive who doesn't have that exact same process. Now, I can feel some people in the audience going, oh, bear with me. All human beings digest in exactly the same way. Of course, nobody has a problem with that. There's no one who chews cud like a cow or spits acid like a grasshopper. If you're human, you got one digestive system. Now, by all means, what we can put through that system might differ. Some people can do gluten, some can't. The supports we need to make that system work might change. Some people, if you lost your esophagus, we might have to put food directly into your stomach, but it doesn't change the process by which the body extracts nutrients and excretes waste. All human beings breathe in the same way. Of course we do. No one's got 6 lungs or anything else. Now, what we choose to breathe might change. Cigarettes or vapes. Supports, I need an iron lung. But the process doesn't change. The process of learning is the same for everyone. Everyone who's ever learned anything. There is surface learning. There are different levels of deep learning. There is transfer. What we might need to go through those processes might change. If you've got a student who is blind, you cannot show them a picture book, but it doesn't mean that the process of learning has changed at all. So that's where with learning disabilities, most of our discussion is less about process, more about input. What do you need to get that system moving? And I think one of the biggest guys in the field, his name is Bruce Pennington. He wrote the last 3 books on learning disorders. So he's like the guy. I read his latest book, From Theory to Practice, Volume 3, Learning Disorders. Don't read it, man. It's a tank. Unless you want to know about genetics, stay away. But my favorite thing is you get to the end of every chapter, like, okay, what's the big take home here? And the end of every single chapter is exactly the same. Students with dyscalculia do not appear to need qualitatively different instruction. They simply need more of it broken into smaller chunks with more time for practice and repetition. Students with ADHD do not appear to need qualitatively different practice. They simply need more of it broken up into smaller chunks with more time for practice and repetition. His big take home is we're all doing it right. There's no magic silver bullet here. It's just some kids are going to need a lot more drill and kill and practice to push them into those lower levels. So the process stays the same, but we might just need more input, different inputs for different kids. Does that kind of make sense?
Oh, yeah.
Absolutely.
Absolutely, it makes sense.
I didn't make anyone too angry. That's good.
No. So, because we're dyslexia therapists and we teach kids how to read and spell and do handwriting and even some composition pieces and verbal expression and comprehension, all of it in a very different way. A common comorbidity with dyslexia is ADHD, right?
Yep.
So it's that executive functioning, working memory, all those things are highly impacted. It may take some of these dyslexic kids twice as long to go through the process of acquiring reading and spelling.
Yeah.
How can digital multitasking exacerbate executive functioning challenges, though, especially with our kids that might have some learning disabilities like that?
Okay. This is, you've hit a real good crux here. So, okay. ADHD has become comorbid with basically everything.
Everything, yeah.
And go back 20 years, it wasn't.
Right.
So this suggests to us that ADHD is not an actual comorbidity in the sense that you're seeing two things. Somehow everyone has ADHD right now. Like it's basically, I think if you go by just the standard definition in the DSM, probably 85% of people, myself included, would be diagnosed with ADHD right now. It is prevalent. So now we can say what changed? None of the disorders changed. What changed was what we're doing with our lives.
Right.
We are acting as though we have ADHD. Why? One of the things we do on technology is we multitask wickedly fast.
Right.
When we are on technologies, we jump between texting and checking my email, and I go, oh, I got that idea. Let me just jump over here. The single worst thing you can do for learning and memory is multitasking. Multitasking shuts the whole system down. When you're jumping between tasks, your memory tanks, and in fact, you don't even use your hippocampus anymore. You start to use a secondary memory network, which is trash. Your speed goes, your accuracy goes, everything goes. I always say, outside of locking a kid in a cage, multitasking is the worst thing you can do for learning. Do not do it. But the problem is when you look at how much time kids spend on computers, they spend about 400 to 450 hours per year using a computer to learn, and about 2,500 hours every year using a computer to multitask.
Wow.
So if multitasking is the worst thing you can do for learning, but now I say, hey, sit down and use this screen to learn. Well, mate, that's the exact same screen I have just spent thousands of hours training myself to do the one thing I shouldn't be doing right now if you want me to learn. And so is it any wonder that when kids sit down on a screen, usually within 6 minutes, that's the limit, they'll just start multitasking, at which point it looks as though they have ADHD symptoms. So a big argument is going around right now that's saying ADHD might not even be diagnosable in the next 10 years.
Wow.
Not because it doesn't exist, but because everyone acts as though they have it because of the tools.
Right.
We all act as though we have ADHD, which makes it impossible to differentiate between those who genuinely have a problem and those who don't. So when we think about comorbidity with the dyslexia and ADHD, if we bring in a tool that is guaranteed to exacerbate attentional shifting, we can't be shocked when all of a sudden their dyslexia is slow to regress or is getting worse over time, or my treatment is not helping as it used to 10 years ago. It may not be in the treatment. It may not even be in the problem. It may be in the tool we're using to try and address that problem. And one of the biggest ones, I'll pop this one out. Someone just published a paper, I think it was last year, said ASD, ADHD, autism and ADHD comorbidity. Yes. What the hell are we talking about? That was the name of the paper. Because the idea is biologically, true ADHD and autism are completely different ends of the spectrum. They cannot overlap. If you have one, you can't have the other because the mechanisms by which they work are contrary to one another. So this woman basically came out and said, we can't diagnose those two together. It doesn't make sense, yet we're doing it. Why? Because everyone basically has ADHD. And if we have this narrow window of what attention means, you're going to miss some of the attentional problems of ASD. We're just lumping into ADHD, saying, oh, it's the same thing. Don't worry about it. And she's saying, no, we got to be a little bit more specific. And that's where ideas of what is ADHD are going to really start to come to the fore soon.
That is incredible. My son, my middle, is on the autism spectrum. And he first started with an ADHD identification when he was in first grade, because he was running out in the middle of the road. And I'm like, oh my God. And then we kind of figured it out as we went along, but they kept him on meds for all that. And I was like, I just don't see this making anything better. In fact, it made some things worse with him.
That's the way, if you have comorbidity, ASD and ADHD, and you take pills known to treat ADHD and it doesn't do anything, good news, you don't have ADHD. That's not a comorbidity.
I'm just going to go home and tell him now.
Yeah, that's bad. I'm like, but I don't want to derail the concept, but if you think about it, so the concept is called thresholding, right? Every brain has a hard threshold, which says if you want to pay attention to anything, that signal has to be stronger than your threshold. Right. This is how the brain weeds through all the noise of the world. It says anything that dips below this, we're just not even going to process it. Don't worry about it. Right. Kids with ADHD tend to have abnormally high thresholds. Almost nothing breaks through. That's why you get that real hyperactive flitting. It's like, oh, there's and it's gone. Oh, and it's gone. Oh, and then it's gone. It's just very little sustains. So what do? You give them speed. You give them cocaine. Now, you and I take speed, our threshold's going to drop low. You give them speed, same exact thing's going to happen. Their threshold will drop. It's just going to settle into a more traditional level where now they can sustain focus for longer. So if you ever wondered why giving a kid with ADHD speed works, that's it. It's a threshold problem. ASD, on the other hand, is traditionally, not all the time, but traditionally characterized by a low threshold. These kids have an abnormally reactive brain. Too much is getting in. That's why you tend to see blocking behavior. That's why you get shunting. They're trying to shut out the noise. Right. So you can see why if I say you have ASD and ADHD, I have a low threshold and a high threshold simultaneously. Magic. Nope. You probably have ASD. It's just you have some attentional symptoms that we're lumping in with ADHD. But that's why if you give a kid with ASD speed or Ritalin, their threshold will drop and it will make things worse for them. And they're like, whoa, I'm getting more information. Yeah. I need less. And that's why people like her started writing these papers saying, wait a second, we got a problem here, everyone.
That is
fascinating.
I don't want to biographize, but yeah, we'll talk afterwards then about my kid. But when I was reading your book and I was reading about the whole digital multitasking, and I was reading about it and I was like, because my phone was sitting next to me. In fact, I put myself on top of my bed with all my pillows. My dogs are around me. That's their happiest place. And I thought, okay, I'm not going to get interrupted. My phone's going off. My phone's going off. My phone's going off. So I went and I put it in the other room. And then my watch started going off. My watch went off. Watch went off. I wasn't allowed to do that deep comprehension because of emails and texts and phone calls and everything else that was coming through. And there's so many times I wish I had a highlighter because I was like, oh, I want to tell them about this. I want to tell them about this. I want to tell them about this. And I didn't have a highlighter. I was like, oh, I'll remember. No, I don't remember any of it because I didn't get to that deep level because I kept getting interrupted. And see
that's
this.
The world.
Yeah.
We created that. That's the world around. I pumped gas the other day and there's an advertisement coming out of the gas pump handle. I'm like, I can't even stand here for 2 minutes without the world saying also, and don't forget, we've created a world that ADHD is now the only way to navigate what's going on, which
interesting.
Is very strange. I don't like it.
So how is this affecting long-term and short-term retrieval? Because I can see that, with my son who has ADHD, he's got a harder time retrieving information that's been floating by him, like you were talking about. How does it affect long-term and short-term retrieval if they are having such a hard time staying focused with all these digital tools distracting us all over the place?
You could expect, especially long-term retrieval, we need to have formed what's called a semantic memory. So real quick memory lesson. Anytime you learn something new, it begins as what's called an episodic memory in your brain. So we call them episodic because they're little episodes in our life. If my birthday last week, I remember being at my birthday, there's cake, that's an episode. Now, the more episodic memories you make, your brain is going to start to compare and contrast them. And anything that's similar amongst all your episodic memories, anything that just keeps appearing again and again and again, your brain is going to pull that out and create what we call a semantic memory. This is a decontextualized bit of information that you can now use more freely wherever you want to. So like, I remember my birthday last week, episodic. I know that birthday means the anniversary of somebody's birth. That's semantic. That's not tied to any event. That's now just a fact that floats around my mind. Long-term retrieval tends to rely on semantic memory formation. If once you've built a semantic, that's when it becomes easy for you to pull this up. So how do you build a semantic memory? You need multiple episodic memories. Only by having the same thing again and again and again will your brain eventually say, I guess here's a pattern, let's pull that out. With kids with ADHD, it's harder for them to lock down episodic memories. Because they have a problem with sustain, things might start to come in, but halfway through the memory, the stimuli dips below their threshold, it stops coming in. They may not have actually formed a robust episodic memory enough to get you to that semantic phase. So this is why we tend to say, as a rule of thumb, we tend to say, and this is by no means perfect, it's just a dirty rule of thumb, 3 unambiguous episodic memories, you will form a semantic. 2 or fewer, you won't. And that's why we tend to say with kids with like ADHD, say, they just need more repetition and more time for practice. And we just don't think they're building robust enough episodic memories. So we're just going to keep doing it. Maybe they need 10 episodic memories until they get that semantic. Eventually they get there. It's just because of that thresholding issue, they're just not building a strong enough episodic memories that we need to get to that next stage.
I love that explanation, because I've often wondered what is the actual threshold that gets something from short-term memory to long-term memory. And I know with our students, we have to repeat a lot more than just 3 or 4 times to make the semantic meeting. But I just am very intrigued to hear it.
And you'll see too,
explained that way.
It's compounding, which is really good. That's the good thing, is once you've got a certain amount of stuff locked down, it becomes easier for you to bring in new stuff. So if it takes somebody brand new to history 3 episodic memories to build a semantic fact, let's say you've been doing history for 10 years and someone brings in a new fact you've never heard before. Did you know during this battle, this guy was there? Because you have such a deep body of semantic knowledge, you might only need that 1 episodic input, and you'll be able to immediately shunt that over and be like, cool, I know. And now it's part of your deeper knowledge.
Because now it's making that connection, like you're talking about.
So it compounds. So it might be hard to get the ball rolling in some cases, and you got to put a lot of effort into that. But once the ball is rolling, you might find that it starts to ease up a little bit more.
That's why there's that tumbling effect of learning.
Yep.
Okay. And then one last question about the memory. So then what is the deal with long-term retrieval when there is a deficit in that pulling from the long-term retrieval to do something with it?
There's where it's tricky. Because we can't track memories in the brain at all. We don't even know what they are.
Right.
The number of mechanisms that could impede long-term access are so many that we can't really lock it down. This is where, like, if you have Alzheimer's, you can't access memories, long-term memories. That's for one reason. If you have frontotemporal dementia, you can't, but it's for a totally different reason. If you have ADHD, you might not be able to, but that would be for a different reason. We don't know. If we think you have it in there and we have reason to believe that it's actually in there, your best bets are either going to be A, it's a problem with the actual memory machinery, which you wouldn't expect with young kids. So B, it's going to be some issue with the frontal lobe accessing memories in some way, whether they can't sustain focus enough, whether they can't control the episodic rebuild enough, but we don't know. If we have reason to believe it's in there and it can't come out, our best bet is, this is going to sound crazy, wait until they're dead, and then we can dissect their brain and we can say, there was the problem. But it's not, while you're alive, it's much trickier. So you can see that not very helpful for us in the classroom.
Well, I appreciate that because, I've heard from other researchers as well that have said the same thing, that's the one area of memory that just really hasn't been able to be identified as to why there might be a difficult time retrieving.
You want to know the funniest thing about memory? Nobody knows what they are. You want to talk about the one thing that we haven't figured out about memory? The hell is it?
Yeah.
We still don't even know. Is it a chemical? Is it a pattern? Is it the new argument now is that memories might be interfering magnetic fields throughout your entire body. For as much as we know about how memory manifests and works behaviorally, which is perfect for us as teachers, at the educational level, all we need is the behavior. The why it's happening, irrelevant. I don't care if it's in your lung or your toe.
Yeah.
I need it happening out here. But when you dig down into the people trying to figure out the why, I love that we still don't even know what it is. So all these tech gurus who are like, we're mimicking human memory. I'm like,
How?
you know what it is? Well, you solved a problem we haven't been able to figure out because we can't even tell you what we're talking about yet.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. So kind of going back to the technology, can technology mask underlying learning disability or underlying deficit? How so?
Absolutely. Because we can adapt tech to our preferences,
Mhm.
some kids with learning disabilities who use tech learn how to use tech to work around any problems they have. And they can still come out with a wonderful solution, which might be great for some people. And so they're handing in their work and they're getting their A's and they're clicking all the buttons. And at no point have we ever stopped and said, wait a second, without all the supports and scaffolds, what can you actually do? And so because the machine is so good at adapting to what you ask of it, you can very easily make it through your life without ever acknowledging, oh, yeah, by the way, I never really learned how to read.
Yeah. So that opens up kind of some risk factors for our students who really don't get maybe the help that they need because technology is masking things. So what are the risks of relying too heavily on assistive technology without that explicit instruction in place?
You'll never remediate. The biggest risk is you'll just never treat anything. And some people say, well, cool, I don't want to treat my dyslexia. That's sweet, man. I'm not saying you have to, but I'm saying that if you want to, using a tool that masks it is going to be the best way to never have to actually deal with the underlying issue. And this is where I think the adage that you can only serve one master when it comes to education is so wickedly important. Right. So let's say I've got a kid and we're working on reading. Now, there are kind of, you guys would know this, there's two aspects of reading. You've got decoding and you've got comprehension. Can I make sense of the letters? Do I understand what the hell those letters mean? If I'm worried about comprehension and I know you struggle with decoding, I might just scrap the decoding altogether. I might say, pull out your headphones and listen to it because I'm more interested in what it's saying and what you think about what you've just read rather than getting caught up on the decoding. But flip it, there might be times when all I need is decoding. And now it's just, I need you to figure out that a D makes a D sound. In that instance, we can't also then ask them about comprehension. And that's where I think the disconnect kind of comes in. Is sometimes we're working with a student on remediation for dyslexia. Can you sound out words? Can you say it? And then afterwards, we're like, cool, so what do you think about what you just read? I don't know what I just read because I was super focused on just the decoding aspect. So that's where I think tech used right in these instances might be beneficial. Hey, you are getting caught up on A, all my outcome I need is B, use tech to avoid A. But just know that if that's all you ever do is use tech to avoid A, then you can never, ever hope to develop A. At some point, you're going to have to get off the tech, drill only A. But the more we can help kids realize when we're drilling A, that's it. I'm not going to quiz you on it. You're not getting an A, B, C, D, E, F, whatever it's going to be. There's not going to be an assignment for you. Right. We're just drilling, baby. We're just doing our letters today. And that's okay. Sometimes you fail, sometimes you don't. I'm never going to quiz you on this stuff. And so if we can help them recognize the differences and when we're doing one versus the other, that also might be helpful.
So let me also just say, I'm going to commend you on your D sound. That sounded really good. I hear a lot of people go, duh. And I'm like, duh, not duh.
Thank you. Oh, I feel so, it's probably the noise suppression. I probably did it horribly, but my microphone's
you didn't do that sub vocalization at the end. You didn't put the schwa. I hear a lot of researchers and they go, buh and duh. And I'm like, having a seizure on the other side, but no, that was great. That was great.
I got called out on it because I have a 2.5-year-old. So for the first year of life, you just do the sounds with her. And I had somebody comment, they're like, it's not ba.
That's funny.
Fair enough. Thank you. So hopefully we'll know if it worked if my daughter comes of age. Then we'll say good job to me.
Funny.
I may have stunted her with all my schwangs at the beginning.
And now a word from our sponsor.
Hi, this is Aimee Rodenroth, and as part of the Dyslexia Duo podcast team and owner of Discovery Dyslexia Services, I want to talk to you about my business. Our COUT-trained team offers expert virtual or in-person therapy located in Prosper, Texas, using proven dyslexia curricula like Take Flight, Build, MTA, Alphabetic Phonics, and Reading by Design. We also provide crucial independent evaluations and advocacy services. Don't wait. Empower your child today. Visit www.discoveread.com to learn more. That again is www.discoveread.com. Discoveread, covering all your dyslexia needs.
Hi, this is Melissa with Kids First Dyslexia Services. I am excited to share with you my private practice. Kids First Dyslexia Services is a private practice that specializes in dyslexia therapy. Each one-on-one session focuses on instruction specific to your child's needs in a nurturing environment that develops self-esteem, builds confidence, and fosters a sense of accomplishment, resulting in happier kids with higher levels of achievement. We provide a professional, personalized experience, always putting the child first. We value the relationships with both our students and parents, because strengthening skills and overcoming hurdles to achieve desired goals and success is a team effort. For more information, please visit www.kidsfirstdyslexia.com. That is www.kidsfirstdyslexia.com.
Let's return to the show.
Okay, so I have a question about paper-based reading versus screen-based reading.
Yeah.
I really want to know, is there a big difference between reading on the two different formats, and or what would be the differences and the cons to doing one or the other?
Yes. So again, if we're just going with straight decoding, I could make an argument for either, and they're probably going to be basically the same. But when it comes to comprehension, it's not just can you read, it's what do you think about what you read?
Right.
Hard copy trumps digital 10 days out of 10. And the reason for it concerns space. So one aspect of human memory is space. Where in space did an event occur? That is all important to the memory you make and can determine how you can access that memory later. So I always say, think about it like when I was growing up, I played a video game called Grand Theft Auto.
Yeah.
And what made it special, I'm old. I've been around the block.
No, I was just thinking.
I still play it today. You're right. I got it loaded up in my Xbox. But I think for those who haven't played the games, this was like the first video game where before this, it was all like Mario, where it was just go in a straight line.
Yeah.
This was just a giant open world and you could go anywhere you want at any time. So what the developers did is they put a little map in the corner of the screen that was always there, always updating. So you never quite lost your space in the world. You always knew where you were. Your brain has that map. And every time you make a memory, it becomes stamped with a three-dimensional location. Where in space did this happen? That matters to us. Every book has an unchanging, very obvious three-dimensional location. Until my book burns into dust, the word "this" will be a tenth of the way through, left page, top left-hand side. It ain't going nowhere. So when we read from books, all of that spatial location becomes part of our memory, makes our understanding and memory deeper. This is why I always say, if you're an avid book reader, when you finish a book, you might not always remember verbatim every word you read, but you will certainly remember where in the book each major event occurred. Like if you want to go to an action scene, you can almost flip right to it and you're like, there it is. There's the paragraph I wanted. When we read from a screen, there is no three-dimensional location. The exact same words will start at the bottom of the screen, go through the middle, pass out the top. There is no clear three-dimensional location. An entire aspect of human memory gets dumped. So what tends to happen is after about 5 minutes of reading on screen, the brain sends you a signal. It's like, dude, I'm not getting all of this. You know it's not working. So you start skimming. So everyone basically just moves into skim mode where you move your eyes down a page instead of side to side and you just kind of look for keywords. So this is why I always tell my students and parents I work with too, I say, look, one thing you can do to change your career, buy a printer. If you did nothing different with your studying and learning, except you printed everything out and read it on paper, you will remember more, comprehend better, remember it longer. It's just the medium itself changes how we interact with it.
That's absolutely. And, we had Marianne Wolf on before, and And she's coming back, by the way.
Oh,
But
good. Tell her I said hello. I have not spoken with
and
her
I
in years,
was
but I love that woman.
thinking about y'all and how similar your responses were, because that was one of the questions we had posed to her, which is better? And she's like, by far the paper copy. It shows there's something about the physicality of it in your hands. There's something about being able to flip through the pages, and like you said, that spatial piece and knowing where that word or that term is, that you just don't have on a screen.
It's gone. And somebody said, and this was a good point, what about like a Kindle, right? That has a location because it's a flipper rather than a scroller. And the data is exactly what you'd think. If paper is good and scrolling is bad, Kindle is right in between the two. It's not as good as paper, not as bad as scrolling. And the reason is a Kindle has 2 dimensions, right? It's got left, right. It doesn't have depth. And that ability to turn the page and understand how deep into or close to the end to a book, that seems to matter as well. So you get a hit from that, losing that 3rd dimension as well. So I'm 100%. Give her my best. She is wonderful.
Yeah, for sure. She's
I also
for her favorite podcast.
Good. Oh, that's what you want from someone like her too. That is like the best endorsement you could find.
Oh yeah.
I also wondered about the backlight, if that also affected.
It can, absolutely. It's going to strain your eyes in a different way. And another thing too, so these are all kind of the sub issues, is the recall issue. You have a book on your desk. Every time you see the cover, you're going to think to yourself, oh, shoot. There was an action scene last night. Oh, I can't wait to read that. You get these little moments throughout the day of recall, and those recalls are making your memory deeper. Kindle just has that front cover. So until you open it and scroll through, you don't get these little reminders every time you look over at your Kindle. What are you reading? What page are you on? So there's these sub mechanisms as well that just honestly just print it out. Like schools asked me the other, they're like, oh, we can't afford textbooks. Do you know how much money you waste per year on subscriptions as a school that no kid will ever use? It's phenomenal. I worked with a school in Australia. They had $1 million almost every year they were spending on digital upkeep and subscriptions that no one touched. I'm like, do you know how much it would be to print out everything your kids read? Let's go high end. Let's go 100,000. You're still saving $900,000. Just buy a printer. It's like the best investment you can make. Spend less money as a school, get better outcomes because you're just going back to what works with how we naturally want to learn.
That's an interesting statement, because right after retirement, I actually worked for an EdTech for a while, and they sent me out to a district in Florida to do some implementation stuff. And I went to that campus and I saw this and I saw this. I saw all these different systems that, electronic based, computer based systems in place to help with reading. And I asked, I was like, are y'all using that? They're like, no. I'm like, are you using that? I'm like, no. And I'm sitting there going, what makes me think they're going to use what I'm doing here too? And then two, how much money is being wasted in this particular school, in this particular district? And I'm sure that's, like you just said, it's not unique.
No, when you look at the expenditure, I was talking to a governor yesterday. U.S. spends more money per kid every year, and the results are going down, 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 down. And I told him, I said, dude, you could spend half the money you're spending now and get so much better results if you just spent it on the right things. There are things that work and there are things that don't work when it comes to learning. And we just keep funneling more and more money into the things that don't work demonstrably. We got the data, we got the evidence, we got the mechanisms. We know that, we know why they don't work. But we're just, I guess, bad money chases bad money. So hopefully we're going to start changing the corner now and start to say, okay, can we do this better? Wouldn't that be crazier if we could do it cheaper? Right. I think we absolutely can.
Better and cheaper. Let's see that.
Save some money and get kids who are coming out a little sharper as they go into the university or whatever the next stage is. Absolutely.
Right.
Well, are there like pros to digital tech? If you're thinking about speech to text or text to speech, how can we incorporate those to help kids with learning disabilities? Are there pros like using those devices for that?
Absolutely. So I say a good rule of thumb when it comes to tech is something is going to be better than nothing. You have a kid who has a specific learning disability who cannot engage with learning any other way. Of course you bring in tech. Don't be stupid. That's where this stuff was going to come in. It was all those kids who don't need the scaffold but use it anyway to avoid the hard thinking. That's where we're like, pull it back. But there are absolutely those who need it. Or think about, I always like procedural simulations. If you're learning how to do a new heart surgery, don't do that on a patient. use digital tech to simulate it.
Yeah.
Let's be smart about this. If there's no other option, go to tech. But if you
Right.
do have two options, and always pick the option that's better. And when it comes to learning, typically the better option is going to be analog. But exactly, go back to, it's always going to depend on your outcome. If your outcome is comprehension, and I know you're struggling with decoding, text to speech could be exactly what we need to make sure you can engage with the learning I need you engaged with. But if we're working on decoding, text to speech is the number one way to make sure you're not going to get what I need you to get from this. So it's all going to depend now on what is your ultimate goal for that learning.
Wow.
Right. Now, in the public schools, a lot of times we would set the kids up with those accommodations, and that would really help them. The teachers would implement them appropriately in the classroom. But then whereas these other teachers that would say, oh, I don't think they need that. We need to challenge them. And they would question whether or not that should even be implemented. Now, here's my question to you. As far as and we're kind of getting into the weeds of school politics, but as far as 504 and ARD committees putting those types of accommodations in place, who's the one to determine what that child needs? If a classroom teacher saying, no, we need to push them, they don't need this, and the parent or the interventionist is saying, well, yes, this would support them, how would you help balance that?
I don't think there's any question that 504 has been exploited and is being exploited. It's the same thing as going on in the UK. I had a friend who just wrote a policy piece which basically said, we're going to run out of money because basically every kid now has a learning need. There's no way, A, that's possible, but B, I think what's been happening is people realize I can get accommodations just by having my doctor tick a box. Boom, tick a box, off we go. So the real battle is going to boil down to who really needs the accommodation. Right. And who is just finding, whose parents are just making the road smoother for them. And that does my head in, recognizing that we even have to have that discussion. It would be so much nicer if we lived in a world where it's like, yeah, you have a problem, let's help you, versus you have money, so I'll sign that for you, go ahead. Right. But beyond that, I would say from the teacher level, you have to be really specific on your goal. Let's say I have a kid who has an accommodation where all text must be put into speech. If I'm an English teacher, I could very much imagine myself saying, no, not in my classroom. But if I'm a science teacher, my purview is not to help you learn how to read. My purview is not decoding, in which case it's probably not my space to say, no, you need to learn how to read. Right. My purview is you got to learn chemistry. And if that makes it so you can learn chemistry, go to town. So I think it's then going to boil down to what is your goal as a teacher and where do you belong on that spectrum? So yeah, as a science and math teacher, I don't think I would ever be able to speak up or should speak up in that case. But if you were a lit teacher, you might have a much better case to say, we're not going to get anywhere if we keep doing this. So we have to push.
Right.
Sounds good. Thank you for that.
No worries. Well, thank you. What was the by the way, that policy piece I was talking about, he makes a really good case for inclusion versus individualism, how the whole system has kind of gone from how do we get these kids who need support so that we can include them to how do we get these kids who need support so we can individualize instruction for them completely. And he's like, oh, that's where now money chases money. And it's how do we go back to that concept of the kids who need it, we're using it so that we can bring them back into an inclusive education, as opposed to everyone gets their own style and brand of school, of K through 12.
That's impossible to sustain, isn't it?
Once 3 million kids become 3 million individual kids, how do you do education? And that's when the AI people are licking their chops going, we got this. But mate, you had COVID to prove you could do it. You proved us you couldn't. So it's a very dangerous road when you realize no one can handle that kind of schooling of education. So we better find a different way to do it.
That's absolutely a great point to make. You said so many things, and because my short term has now been impacted by all the technology we have, I was thinking about back to COVID. So when we went to COVID, now COVID, it was a bad thing, but it did kind of let us know things that we could do in education. And then I think we went too far off the other end with it. But when we went to COVID and we were trying to get all these kids back in school, at least in Texas, this is what it looked like. We gave everybody a device. They did the drive-through, they came through, we gave them a Chromebook, we gave them a laptops. Like the district that we lived in at the time, all the kids got a MacBook. And I'm like, what the Sam Hill is this? Oh no, pretty ritzy. And I was like, all right, well, what I experienced in the district I was at, those kids either didn't come back, and there goes that device. They broke it, or they didn't use it, or somebody else in their household was using it. And then a few of them actually were jumping onto Zoom or Seesaw and doing their classes. But what, beyond that big one right there, what mistakes do you commonly see schools make when implementing one-to-one devices or EdTech programs?
The big mistake is implementing them at all. If we look at the moderators for digital technology and learning, the worst is one-to-one computer programs. Basically giving a kid a screen and saying, it's yours. Woo! Is like, well, why aren't you paying attention? Because you just gave me a machine that I can game on. In schools with one-to-one devices, 24 to 38 minutes of every hour, kids are off task.
I remember reading that. And that was another one I read out loud to my daughter. She goes, what?
And the scary thing is that doesn't even include the time the teachers now have to get them back on task, which it's not immediate where it's like, let's go. I mean, you're just wasting time. So my argument was always never do a one-to-one computing program unless you need to, right? COVID, we had no other option. Something is better than nothing. I'd rather you do 2 hours of learning a week than 0. So let's do something. But the trick was that Band-Aid, that was just meant to be a Band-Aid for COVID lockdowns. It swung back with us into schools. And now more schools, not only did they keep it, they invested more into it. It's like, no, that was never meant to be what we were supposed to do. One of my favorite things I tell schools is you're going to have computers in school because there will be a coding class. There will be an Excel class. By all means, teach computers. Curriculum versus pedagogy. To say we need to teach computer skills is very different than saying we need to teach all skills through a computer. One is curriculum, one is pedagogy. To say we need to teach kids how to code, cool, go to town. To say I need to teach English through the same machine, no, that's pedagogy. Now you're telling me how to teach my class. No. So I have no problem with there being screens at schools. The trick is just like a jigsaw. You don't give every kid a jigsaw. You have the jigsaw locked down in woodshop lab. And now if a kid wants to use it, they're going to go and it's going to be heavily regulated by adults. You go back to having a computer lab. You put friction between the device and the choice to use the device. Now a teacher decides, okay, rather than everyone's got a Chromebook, pull out your Chromebook. That's the default. Now a teacher has to say, wait a second, if I want to use a computer, I got to sign it out, which means no one else is allowed to use it in the school. I got to get my kids up, traipse them around school. That's going to waste about 10 minutes. Is it worth it? And maybe it is. And so some teachers will do it, some won't. The idea is you've just got to reintroduce that friction. Don't make it the first choice. Make it a hard choice that's still there. But now instead of having everyone has a one-to-one, it's we have computers. It's just you're not going to use them all day, every day. And when you do use them, it's going to be very specific and pointed. You did it for this reason under these guidelines. That's it. Go back to home. And so it's just by making the tech reinstitute the computer lab. It's not magic. Every school's got a closet. There's your computer lab.
There's your lab.
I'm curious to know if teachers think it's easier. Because when I got back from COVID was horrible, obviously. And then the year after, we were mandated to put something in our little technology program. We had to put at least one thing in every
one piece
week.
of tech that demonstrated mastery. For as part of your teacher
every week or
evaluation.
something like that. And it was overwhelming. It was something totally irrelevant to what I do day in, day out. And then it was another thing I had to keep up with the grading or at least recognizing that they did it because I didn't take grades. But I just wonder, like, do teachers, regular classroom teachers now feel like it's relevant even for their classroom?
I would argue, so when I talk tech, the only pro tech people I find are principals, school leaders, superintendents. 3 people who do not step foot in classrooms. Teachers, by and large, are the number one response I get from them is thank you. Like, finally, somebody said it. Like, in my estimation, I'd say about 70% of teachers are just totally over tech. It's just they don't have a voice because the leaders say by mandate, you have to use this. So they're like, okay, if I speak up, I lose my job. Why would I speak up? So
Right.
I'm hoping that I represent a first voice where now teachers can start to kind of at least say, hey, guys, there's data and evidence why we shouldn't be doing this. But in my experience, teachers are done. They're sick of this stuff. And especially if you've been a teacher for longer than 10 years, you've seen the difference. You know how bad it is right now. Maybe the new teachers just don't know what else there is. But the older teachers are like, thank you. I've been saying that since 2000, but there you go. You know who else supports this almost universally? In every school I work with, the IT people, the ones that you would assume would be the biggest anti-me, are the ones who are always like, that is what I've been trying to tell them for years. It's about structure. It's about guidance. It's about having a deliberate function. It's not about the tool. It's about using that tool in a very specific way. And so for years, I thought the IT people would be my enemies. They're like, that's it. We've been saying that for years.
Why do you think admin's not listening to their tech people or their teachers that are people in the trenches with their kids saying, hey, this is kind of sucking for us and it's sucking for our kids? Why aren't they listening to them?
You've got a dual prong. One, because they're not in the classroom, they don't see it, which leads into they might not know. That's what I'm hoping this book will show them. Look, it's bad and it's worse than you probably know. But two, school in the last decade especially, school is being run more like businesses than anything else. And the number one metric you have for keeping your district alive is enrollment. And so you need to get kids in. And what's the sexiest, easiest way to get kids attracted to your school? Technology. It tricks parents into you. If you have a billboard with kids with VR on their face and you're like, prepare your kids for the future, parents are on, kids are on, everyone is happy. If you had a billboard that showed two kids taking handwritten notes going, it's hard, but you're going to come out better, parents are gonna be like, nah, that's not for me. So it's, I think because school has kind of shifted away from we're here to educate to we need to just keep enrollments up. That's their job as the superintendent. They don't even think about this stuff. They think about what's going to bring people in.
Well,
we constantly see our numbers of enrollment are dropping.
That's what I was saying. We've got lots of campuses in multiple districts, and we're in DFW. Multiple districts is like high-end districts with lots of money. And they keep saying the same thing. Oh, we've got older families without young children here in the district, or people aren't having children like they used to, or they're homeschooling. So I don't even know.
That's your big bet. Homeschooling is the sign that parents are sick of their kids being on screens 24/7. And the rise of alternative education is a sign that parents are sick into the rise of the nature school. I don't need my third grader on an iPad all day. So I'm taking them out of your school and I'm putting them in a nature school and they're going to be outside all day. I'd rather you dig in dirt than scroll on that screen. I think these are all symptoms of the underlying problem that parents at least have recognized that school is no longer doing a good job at teaching kids. I still think it's doing great. It's not doing as good a job as when we were growing up. And we're like, look, if my schooling experience is better than my kids, that's not right. That's not how this should be happening. And so that's why I think a lot of parents think I could do it myself. I could do it better than you. And I genuinely don't think it's the teachers. It's the fact that we've just farmed so much of it out to devices that are not doing a good job. And think about, go back to the anxious generation. How many parents are working to ban tech in their home? And how many fights they're getting in with their kid over the cell phone. It's not in your room. You're not having it on the weekends. Only for that kid to go to a school and then be told by a superintendent who's never even met their kid, your kid has to use a screen or you can't come to our district. So you're just unwrapping everything I as a parent am trying to achieve at home with my kid because you have some mandate or spent some money on a device that you can't even show me evidence is doing anything good. It makes no sense.
You know, and back again, when my kids were in school, we had a rule. There's no screen time during the school week, right? So no devices. If you had to use a computer, it was to type up an assignment or something like that. Couldn't play video. I mean, we were hardcore. And it was so hardcore that our kids would bring their friends by and say, tell them the rule. Tell them the rule. Because they couldn't believe it that we wouldn't let them have any screen time except on the weekend. And we'd find them sneaking iPads into the room at night. We'd go in there, we'd take the iPad out.
No, not in my house.
Yeah, we changed the Wi-Fi password. I mean, we did all the things that we had to do.
what's scary is you put the boundaries up, but technology is always smarter. There's always these creeps that are out there stalking on our kids and knowing exactly what they need to do to get into chat rooms and be with the little kids. And it's wrong.
Think about the ultimate boundary, the boundary of you will not have an iPad. And then they go to a school and the school says, here's an iPad. And you go, no, get that the hell. And so there's some states, this is why I'm talking to some governors and stuff. You'll see, I think there's 6 states are going to introduce a bill that legalizes an opt-out. Because right now, if your school, even a public school, says we're using iPads and you come in and say no, you can't go there. You have no legal recourse to opt out. They're going to say, sorry, your kid has to use a computer, which does my head in. So luckily, some states are standing up and saying the first step is you at least got to give parents a chance to say no. And the idea being that, and I saw this in Australia, there was a school that said, okay, parents can opt out of tech. And so about 10 to 12 of the kids opted out of tech. So what happened is their teachers now had to do twice the work. They had to do digital versions of everything and analog versions.
That's what I was going to ask. Yeah.
And in so doing, the teachers, after about a month, realized, look, the analog stuff takes a lot more work, but it's so much better. It's the questions I want to ask them. It's feedback I want to give them. And after about a month, everything just went analog. All the teachers were like, you know what, of the two, the analog is better. And so just by having this simple opt-out, that was enough to shift the entire culture of the school. So I don't think that'll happen everywhere, but I think it's a really cool case study to say that simple move could be enough to leverage out a lot of this tech.
Well, I know in Texas, and I don't know if it's all of Texas, but at least around us, they're banning cell phones. Like you can't come in with your cell phone. You can't come in with your smartphone. And I was like, how smart is that? Like not even in the hallways, not at the cafeteria, no place. It has to stay out. And I love that. And I hope everybody kind of starts to go that direction.
Yeah.
So kind of, I don't want to keep you too long, Dr. Horvath, but I still have more questions.
We could keep on going, couldn't we?
We could. Where do you see educational technology heading in the next 10 years? And what, in addition to everything we've talked about, concerns you the most?
I see it becoming highly structured. I don't see EdTech because it's a $400 billion industry. I don't see them running away, but I do see them. There are going to be legal injunctions placed on them on what they're allowed to and not do. And I think schools are going to really start to cramp down on screen use. But I do think it's still going to be around. And again, I got no real problem with tech. I'm not anti-tech. I'm pro-learning.
Right.
If you want to use tech to teach coding, go to town, mate. If you want to use tech to teach reading, no, there is better tools to do that with. So I think it'll always be around. I just think it's going to kind of like that hype cycle. It overstayed its welcome. I think there will be a brief moment where we overswing the pendulum and we get rid of it too much. And then it'll settle into just like when we were growing up in the 90s. We have a computer lab. One day a week, we spend some time on the computer. The rest of the time, we're just being normal students. What scares me the most
the TV.
is...
the TV card.
Roll in the cart, put in the VHS. Here we go. What scares me is just the lack of knowledge amongst the decision makers about this stuff, but I'm hoping that'll change. And the one ray of hope I had, we were working with a group of 3rd graders. I wasn't in the room, but somebody told me this story. And he said they were talking about AI, and the 3rd grader said, AI, that's a boomer's toy. And I'm like, yes.
Oh,
if
wow.
the next generation realizes that AI, computers, they're our tools. They don't like anything about us. They hate our music. They hate our clothes. They hate our movies, but they love our tools. That's why whenever I have to work with kids with tech, the first thing I always say is, here comes an old guy telling you about tech. So you're probably going to tune out now. But remember, your generation uses tech. My generation invented tech.
Yeah.
It reflects our worldview way more than it reflects yours. So basically, every time you use it, you're following my rules. You're living in my world. Why would you want to do that? Like, your generation hates us. Why would you ever want to use our tool? So hearing a kid say AI is a boomer's tool made me realize, or hope, that maybe Generation Alpha is going to realize, who cares about this stuff? This is you guys. We want to invent a new world. We want to do something better than you, which means I'm going to not use your nonsense.
Do you think AI is going to play a role in education?
No. The second it does, education is basically shooting itself in the foot. There's a quote from Neil Postman. I'm going to bastardize it, but teachers being excited about AI is like a blacksmith being excited about the automobile. You're basically, anytime you use it, you're telling the world, I don't need to be here anymore. We do
Right.
three things. We develop lessons, we give kids feedback, and we help structured learning.
Mm.
That's our job. And we don't give feedback and assessment for kids. We give it for us. That gives us information about what I got to do next. How do I got to tweak my teaching? Anytime you interface AI with any of those three jobs, you're giving ammunition to somebody to say, you don't need to be here anymore. A tool can do exactly what you're doing. So no, and the good news is I've got 2 chapters on AI in the book. There's these.
I'm on it, I think. It's at chapter 6. I think so.
Yeah. AI, the tool nobody asked for, solving problems nobody had. These things exist for no purpose. They're totally pointless.
I love that.
No one gets it. Even the developers themselves, when they made it, they flat out said, we don't know what this is good for. It was just an experiment to see if we could do it. And then they gave it to schools and said, you tell us, is this any good?
This is great.
So I'm a beta tester now, and my kids are going to pay the price for any goodness about
Right.
But I think the good news with AI is a concept called model collapse. When it comes to systems like AI, output can never be input. Anytime output becomes input, the system will collapse. So think about digestion. If you eat a burger and output waste, you can't now use that waste as input and expect your system to keep working. It's not going to happen. Same with AI. All the input was human generated. All the output is AI. They assumed they would have 15 to 20 years before there was enough AI content on the internet that the input would start to be AI generated and the model would start to collapse. It took 18 months for there to be so much AI content on the internet that output started to become input. And you're already starting to see the models collapse. If you ever play with ChatGPT, everyone who plays with it knows ChatGPT 5 is worse than ChatGPT 4. That's why they re-released ChatGPT 4, because it was doing better. Why would a later model be worse than the first? Model collapse.
Because of the
It's because
output
there's been
input.
so much output coming back into it that the model is starting to fall apart. And so I would argue within 10 to 15 years, there's a chance LLMs don't even exist, or they're wickedly narrow in what they can do. It just moved too fast and people used it too early, and they didn't have any controls in place that these models just aren't going to make sense. So that's why I crack up. And all the schools are like, we got to teach kids how to use AI. Excuse me?
Yeah. Nope, we don't.
A box that you type words into, you need to devote time to that. Why don't you devote time to teaching kids stuff so they have meaningful stuff to put in that box? AI's are, that's my favorite. I go to the ed conferences a lot to teach at, and I've been tracking the age of the people who say, let me tell you how to use AI well in school. The average age is 37. So 37-year-olds are telling us how to use AI in school. Every time I see someone talking about AI at a conference, I raise my hand and ask the same question. You're 37. How did you learn this machine? You weren't taught it in school. How did you ever figure it out?
Right.
Well, because a general K through 12 education teaches you how to figure things out. And the more we replace a general education with a tools-based education, don't teach kids thinking, teach them the tool, you're going to stunt them. As soon as the tool is obsolete, they will have learned nothing. So rather than worry about how do we teach kids AI and use it best, don't use it at all. Continue to do what we've always done. And when they know enough stuff and when they develop the skills, they will be able to use AI just fine. It's not hard. A baby could do it. Don't waste your time on it. Go back to the basics and get them ready for thinking. That's when it's going to become useful.
I think our audience, a lot of times when they listen to our podcast, I picture them driving, because that's always what I'm doing when I'm listening to the podcast. I'm driving, and I can just see them stop their cars, get out of the side of the road, and just, clap. That's what I see happening. That's my vision I have in my head with that statement. So
please pull over first.
That's why I said stop your car.
Doing it on the highway. No.
Like the Muppet Show in your car. Yeah. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited that you joined us today, but we're not done. We still have our lightning round questions. You ready for those?
So, hit me. All right, bring it on.
Don't think, just say it.
Okay.
Like that episode of Friends, right? I always say that. Nobody knows what I'm talking about. Anyway, okay. So I think I know your answer on this one. Paper book or e-reader?
Oh,
I don't know.
No, paper book, 100% of the time.
Who has been your biggest supporter?
John Hattie.
All right.
Oh, I didn't see that one coming out. Oh, I'm going to have to ask him if he agrees with that.
One word to describe EdTech hype.
Stupid.
Oh, I like it. Good word.
Most overrated classroom technology.
The laptop. I know that sounds crazy, but
No, I don't think so. Most underrated learning strategy.
most underrated learning strategy, recall. Recall. Memory is based on pulling memories up. So the more you force people to bring memories up, that's how you get deep memories.
Nice. Handwriting or typing for early learners.
Handwriting, 100%.
Absolutely. Oh, I think I know your answer. Screens before bed, yes or no?
Are you talking about like one of those Japanese screens that you pull around your bed to block out the light?
We're talking
That
tech.
sounds good to me.
Yeah, that does
Heck
sound
no.
actually really nice.
No, read a book before bed.
Yep. And in fact, I started doing that with your book because usually I try to watch TV and I was like, nope, not that your book put me to sleep, but it was a more restful sleep. Yeah.
But it is a different kind of cognition that actually settles the system down.
Okay. Best evidence-based intervention for struggling readers.
God, you're going to kill me because this goes way back, but auditory processing. I'm still the biggest fan of, if I've got a kid with dyslexia, pop some headphones on, bah, bah, duh, 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 and just till they can start to tell those two apart.
All right. If you could get rid of AI, would you?
I would have done it yesterday.
There you go.
One myth about the brain you'd love to permanently debunk.
That the brain somehow is the seat of the soul. You are not your brain any more than you're your heart or your lungs or your toe. You don't exist in here. That's why we've never found consciousness in there. You are of all of this, but you are qualitatively more than it. So you are not your brain.
That's a pretty good on the fly answer. Holy cow.
Gosh, that gave me chills.
All right. Coffee or tea or something harder while you're writing?
While I'm writing? Oh, something harder every time. I think I just look at my trash. It's just all cans over here. Sorry. It puts me in a much better mood.
I get it.
What's your definition of success?
When you said that, the only thing I pictured was my daughter living a very small life in a town in Italy, married, happy, just doing a job, just working at a shop. And that's it. I don't know. Our generation, we were raised to think way too big. Yeah. So success would, to me, be her being content with just a small life.
I agree. Okay, here's the ending one. If educators remember only one sentence from your book, what would it be?
Can I read it?
Yeah, let's hear it. What page is it on? So I can put it.
He knows. He already knows. See, he's got that in his memory.
Our children are less cognitively capable than we were at their age.
That I'm telling you, that was just, your book is mind-blowing. I used to be an avid reader, and then as life went on, I don't read as much as I'd like to. Yeah. But this was, you can see, yeah, I'm on page 104, and I got the book, what, Monday, something like that. I mean, it's an amazing book.
You're making my day. And that is, I tried to write it like I wanted to read it. I was same as you. I used to read like pop-sci books voraciously. And I could tell you like The Brain That Changes Itself and Proust and the Squid. Wasn't. And then I don't know. I feel like all the books say are just giant business cards. I just don't care anymore. I'll pick up a nonfiction and be like, nah. So I tried to write this like the old style books. Every single page has an idea. Like one of the reviews nailed it. Whoever wrote that, if you're listening to this, thank you. They said not a single idea is wasted in here. It's just, if you can't have a new idea on every page, then don't write the next page. I don't need 300 pages for you to say one thing.
Right.
Give me new or give me fast or get the hell out of here. So that's what I tried to do with this book. So I'm glad it's resonating. I'm glad it's sticking.
And then one other question, is the Hugh Grant really the Hugh Grant that I'm thinking of? Like, really?
That is the Hugh Grant.
How cool is that? So he's one of the people who gave a recommendation. Look, terrifying and essential reading. Hugh Grant, actor and education advocate.
That is Hugh Grant. So he has 5 kids, and he's just so angry at what school-based tech did to his kids. Yeah. He's like, my kids aren't learning anything. They're not learning to read. They're just learning to game. So his wife actually started a foundation in the UK, and they're very big advocates against EdTech. And so he found out I was writing this, and he's all on board.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
How cool is that? 4 weddings and a funeral.
Yes.
Well, is
He's
is
my
that
buddy
also
now.
the Love Actually one, the Christmas one? Is that the one
That
he's
is
in also?
him.
Yeah.
And was he in About a Boy? The guy's a thing. He's my
Yeah,
hero.
yeah,
He's awesome.
yeah.
Oh,
He was
wait,
a
we didn't
classic-
even say Notting Hill
Yeah.
with Julia Roberts. That is
Classic
like one of those.
90s actor.
Like, I can make an argument that that's one of my top 10 favorite films.
Yeah,
That's one of those ones, whenever it's on, I'm like, oh, this is good.
Yeah.
This is good stuff. I don't know if I want to be him or her. I don't know how it works, but I'm just, every time I'm hooked on that.
I'd want to be Julia Roberts every time.
She's fair enough. And I want to be, isn't it cool to think like you could be like a bookstore owner and then the biggest movie star comes in and falls in love with you? That's cool to feel.
That was actually my dream before I got into what we're doing, all the glamorous life of podcasting that we're doing now. But I always wanted to open up either a daycare with my mom or a bookstore. And I go into these little antique bookstores around here and I'm like, oh, I could do this. And my husband's like, no, we're not going to do this.
But then who would be the actor who has to come by that you fall in love? Like, who's the new, like Chris Hemsworth? Like, who's the hot new actor?
I'm too old for him. I don't know.
This is my quick fire round. Okay, who is the actor? Tom Selleck? Are we in that era?
Oh,
Like,
Tom Selleck.
Where do we narrow this down?
Yeah, Tom Selleck. Yeah.
He's very old, though.
Heard that. Sorry, Greg. He's editing this podcast. But
See, that's where you go. Harrison Ford is still the coolest in my book. It's like until that guy's gone, he's got to be the answer to every who's the best, coolest
Harrison Ford
actor. Even I'd be like, if he walked into my bookstore, I'd be like, come on, all right. All in love. I'm all right with this. You are Indiana. Let's go.
Han Solo. Why not?
Why not? You won. You win my heart. I belong to you, sir. Dude, all your listeners are like, what the hell are they
What is
talking
going
about?
on? It's taking a weird turn. Oh, well, we appreciate you doing this.
Yes,
It's been
this
so
was
fun
fun.
too, but we really appreciate you taking your time out and doing this. And I'm so excited that, seriously, that you agreed to do this. I really am.
Oh,
And thank you so
guys.
much.
And thank you for all the work you guys are doing. I always say, I think and I write, you guys actually get the work done. So you guys inspire me. So we're in one big loop together.
Oh, well, thank you.
I'm
so
glad
much.
we have each other. Thank you for doing
Indeed.
all that research for us so
No
that we can read
worries.
about it.
Because I want to be able to do it. All right.
Thank
You want
you.
to do it?
So, do you have like an outro?
We do.
Yeah, we do real fast.
So this is Aimee.
And Melissa.
And we're the
Dyslexia Duo.
We'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. The Dyslexia Duo hosts are Melissa Dean
And Aimee Rodenroth. The producer is Greg Rodenroth.
Dyslexia awareness is so important. Please share with your friends, family, and anyone who needs to know more about dyslexia.
Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and X at the Dyslexia Duo.
Thanks for listening.
Bye.